Welcome, everybody, to another edition of I'll Hang Up and Listen. I am Duane from Two Goalies, One Mike. Um, yeah, last night an absolute bombshell dropped on all of us, not just Sabres land, but the hockey world by Peter Fish and both of Jack Eichel's agents. Very eye-opening, and I don't know which way to think here, guys, because it's clear as day. There's some frustration mounting on Jack Eichel's side. He wants, according to the statement, he wants to get the surgery done. Still, the time has well passed for the rehab to see the touch and go. Let's rehab it, see where we're at. The deadline that was given has more than passed. I'm sure we've all read the statement. I won't get too deep into that. But what I did take from that statement was it kind of seems like the agreement made, and in the comments you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. The agreement made was that the Sabres would orchestrate this trade, and then the next team would make the decision medically, and that trade was supposed to happen, by the start of free agency. It was just a few short days ago. Now, with that being said, obviously the trades didn't happen. We did see some trades happen. We saw the blockbuster, if that's what you want to call it, Rasmus Ristolainen trade. Absolutely. That was phenomenal on the part of the Sabres, 100%. You saw the Sam Reinhart deal where some fans thought that was very underwhelming. I agree, it was underwhelming, but that was the market for a player that they considered a winger, not a center, even though I considered him a center. You got Devin Levi and a first-round pick from Florida. You saw a lot of moves made, minor moves, Craig Anderson, Aaron Dell, and a few other players brought in just, on very one-year contracts. It's going to be tough for them to hit the salary cap floor, but we didn't see the trade that we all wanted to see, which was, of course, the Jack Eichel trade, which is pretty much come inevitable. And I'm going to read the statement here, obviously, which seems to be very, written out of frustration from Jack Eichel's camp. This is per Peter Fish and Peter Donatelli. In response to the Sabres statement regarding being in control of the process, Jack Eichel under contract, and other comments, we offer the following response. The process is not working. As previously stated, we fully anticipated a trade by the start of NHL free agency period. After the agreed upon and prescribed period of conservative rehabilitation lapse in early June 2021, that's the deadline I spoke of earlier, it was determined by the Sabres medical staff that a surgical procedure was required. The recommendation by Jack's independent neurosurgeon, which we will get into right after this, other spine specialists consulted, and the surgery Jack feels most comfortable having in order to correct a herniated disc in his neck is to proceed with artificial disc replacement surgery. A further point of concern is that our camp was initially under the impression that the Sabres specialist was in agreement with the artificial disc replacement surgery until that was no longer the case. What is being left out of the discussion is that Jack would be able to play in the NHL for the start of the season pending medical clearance if he were allowed to have the surgery he desires, even as of this date. Repeated requests have been made to the Sabres since early June to no avail. This process is stopping Jack from playing in the NHL, and it is not working. Peter Fish and Peter Donatelli. So with that all being said, I took from that was, we're going to get you traded. You can, with this new team, whoever it may be, would get this medical thing straightened out. That's what I took from all of this. Does this make him look good? This statement that was dropped last, no, it's not a good look. I don't think so. I think people are going to perceive him to be whining and complaining. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying perception is everything, and maybe that's the perception that his camp is giving off now. It's not a good look for the Sabres because they're blatantly saying in that you told us this. We've been trying to contact you. You haven't been getting back to us. This is no good. So there's just a lot to unpack here. And then, not even 12 hours later, on Elliot Friedman's 31 Thoughts podcast with him and Jeff Merrick, they had on the neurosurgeon that works, I think, indirectly or directly with the Denver Broncos, Chad Prusmack, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, on 31 Thoughts to discuss this procedure, the differences between artificial disc replacement and disc fusion, fusion surgery. And, I listened to the podcast with an open mind. I tried to have zero bias. And I will say this, if you're trying to have zero bias and no skin in the game, and you're not a Sabres fan, and you're listening to this, it does seem like the artificial disc replacement surgery is absolutely the way to go. He referred to it as a one and done procedure. You're in, you put the disc in, you give 6 weeks rehabilitation with low impact rehab, core exercises they mentioned in the podcast, and the bone would essentially grow into the disc. And there's only, I think I listed out the look here, 4.8% of the, he mentioned he's done this procedure over 1,000 times. Only 4.8% of the time has he had to go in and make a correction or take the disc out because of maybe extenuating circumstances. And in that case, it would go to plan B, which I think is the option the Sabres want to do, is the disc fusion, which is essentially again, the verbiage may not be 100% correct, but you're taking screws and you're putting the bone to ligament. I'm not 100% pause on the verbiage, but he also says it is a very, very high success rate surgery, but the long-term effects later down the road and your quality of life aren't as great with the fusion, but better with the artificial disc replacement. 25% of the time with the fusion surgery, you have to go back in for a second procedure, possibly 10 years down the road, which would impact Jack Eichel's quality of life. The ability to maybe do certain things down the road. And again, if you're not having a biased outlook on this interview and on both these procedures, you would say, well, let him get the artificial disc replacement surgery. They mentioned this has been done on rugby players, UFC fighters, most notably Chris Weidman of the UFC has had it, as he fought multiple times since having the surgery with the artificial disc replacement. And the only evidence, I think, that from a study done here with Buffalo's surgeon, which I guess is one of the best neurosurgeons in the country, or actually he mentioned the world, is that they've done it with lower back. Well, with lower back is much different than with the neck. It's, the lower back is weight bearing. You carry a lot of weight in your lower back, whereas the neck is much more about flexibility and motion. And you can't really compare the two, according to Dr. Chad Prusmack. So with that all being said, it's a very, we're getting into waters that are very murky. Again, a lot to unpack. And I have difficulty being on the Sabres side here. Could this be a ploy from Jack Eichel's side to force a trade quicker rather than later? There's a lot of speculation out there that he's just, once he's traded, he might not even go the surgery route. Well, if that is the case, then call his bluff. Tell him tomorrow, we're going to okay you for this surgery. We're going to allow it to happen. We will consult with the doctor, Dr. Chad Prusmack, that wants to do it. We will get all the information that we need that we don't already have. And we'll do this. We'll do this. We'll circle back in 6 weeks after you've started the rehab process, and we'll get you there. But if that's the direction you go in, then as from the business side of things, because again, it is your body. You should be able to make the decision medically on what procedure you want to pick. I 150% agree with that. 150%. You should put your health and your family first, your future family first. 150% agree with that. With that being said, it still is a business. Hockey is a business. They have a lot of money and 5 years left on a contract at $10 million a year invested in Jack Eichel. So the hesitancy, there absolutely is a big hesitancy there, because you don't know exactly, what if the outcome of this surgery isn't what you want, and then you have to go in and do the fusion surgery. And guess what? You're another 3 months. And it even mentioned in that podcast that in 3 months they go in an x-ray, and if they can't tell if the fusion worked, they're in very murky waters, because they can't fully clear you to go out and play then, if they can't guarantee that fusion, that the everything fused together from that fusion surgery. So again, you're in murky waters, even though there's an over 90% success rate with that surgery. Again, he did not hesitate to say it is a great surgery. But Jack Eichel would be the first as far as the artificial disc replacement goes. He would be the first NHL professional hockey player to have it done. And I think the Sabres aren't just willing to risk their biggest asset. I know he's a person, but to the Sabres, he's also an asset. And an asset that they know 99.9% isn't going to play for them next season. And they want to, in terms of a trade, maximize on his value. Now, obviously, his value isn't very high, especially after the last 24 hours. From a business standpoint, you want to make sure that you're getting your value back in a trade, which is, I think, why they've been trying to orchestrate this trade before the decision to have the procedure is done and kind of putting that in the lap of another team. I think they should just let him do it. Just let him do it. If this is, and again, I didn't like the fact that statement came out and then less than 12 hours later, we're listening to a podcast from Dr. Chad Prusmack on 31 Thoughts. Yeah, essentially, they said, we've been chasing this guy down for a while. He's been hesitant, doesn't want to do it, didn't want to get involved. And now he thinks he needs to let him get involved. There also could be a financial bias from the doctor's side of things too. Obviously, there is financial gain there. His first responsibility is the health of the person, and he makes that known right away. It's not Jack Eichel, the athlete. It's Jack Eichel, the person. I want to make sure his quality of life, this is what's best for Jack Eichel, not the athlete, the person. I agree with that, 150%. You have to put your quality of life before hockey. Without a doubt, I would be making the same exact decision if I were Jack Eichel. I would want this surgery if I was Jack Eichel. Which is why I think the Sabres are just trying to kind of to put this out of their hands, because that fear, that overall fear of what if this doesn't go right, and then we're 6 months, he's still on the team, he's not playing, and this is just a big distraction. This wouldn't be good for the overall rebuild of this team. Well, if that's the case, he would be an LTIR anyway. He wouldn't count against your cap. And, is it really a distraction? He wouldn't be in the arena. The only distraction there would be is still further trade speculation. What's happening with Jack Eichel? What are the talks? What are the trade talks? That would be the only distraction, in my opinion. And what's the difference between that and now, what we're doing now. I say, if for the fans who think this is a bluff, that think that this is him just trying to push his way out of Buffalo sooner rather than later because he wants to start training for the season, well, then call his bluff and let him get the surgery. If he doesn't get the surgery, then I guess you were right. Or he gets the surgery, 6 weeks goes by, he's doing low impact rehab, just like Dr. Prusmack alluded to. They said around the 8 week to 12 week is when you could start high velocity training, maybe even contact, which is what you would be doing in training camp anyway. And then you're off to the races, maybe in preseason, because training camp starts in 7 weeks. You're off to the races. You're showing the league that you're healthy, that you're 100%. I just think in the best interest of the human being and the best interest of the team is to just let him get this surgery sooner rather than later, and then proceed 2 months from now, 6 to 8 weeks from now, and just circle back then and see what your best options are here. Because judging from, again, trying to approach this from, without any bias, because a lot of comments after it, because I asked for an open forum in a tweet, I said, what are your opinions after listening to that? And people think, well, it's a biased interview. Yeah, that might be so. 100% that might be so. Sorry, guys. That might be so. But, he does lay out a lot of facts and a lot of information on both procedures. He doesn't suggest that he play without surgery. The Sabres' original approach, rehabbing it without surgery, hoping that the problem essentially fixes itself through, slight rehab. Maybe I don't know. I don't know all the I don't know all of the verbiage and, the type of rehab or maybe stretch. I don't know. I have no clue. But that all being said, he doesn't suggest that you go forward without getting surgery. He needs to get surgery. Okay, let's do it. Let him get that surgery. I have a lot of the facts here pulled up in front of me, and just to quote Dr. Prusmack said the ACDF, which is the fusion surgery, would have a 3-month checkup and likely keep Eichel out of action for 6 months. So we're going into the first of the beginning of August. All of August, September, October, November, December. We're talking maybe January, if you allow him to get the fusion surgery, because you got to remember it's a 3-month recovery. Meaning he isn't really fully high impact training. We're going into the season now with this, if you allow him to get the fusion surgery. 6 months and perhaps longer. The disc replacement would have Eichel on the ice training in 6 weeks and perhaps competing in practice in as few as 8 weeks. In addition, the doctor said the fusion would carry a 25% chance of a need for more surgery after 10 years of further surgeries later in life. He characterized the disc replacement surgery as likely one and done, as I mentioned earlier, scenario that 10-year follow-up visits show a 4.8% of patients need a new surgery or a second surgery. The Sabres have declined Eichel's request to have the disc replacement surgery, and General Manager Kevin M. said Thursday that there has been no change in the team's stance. Prusmack said he was sympathetic to the team's position. So sympathetic as in he understands why they feel the way they deal, even though he disagrees with it. With any teams, they should have to mitigate risk for their team. It's a business, he said. I believe everyone cares for each other, but the sort of glass they look through is a different color than the one I am. Intrinsically, I butchered that word, intrinsically, you have a different decision-making process. I obviously can't tell you why or what they're thinking on what they do. I think a cervical fusion is an excellent option. I don't think it is the best option for Jack, nor do I feel it is for any hockey player, if you ask my opinion. The Sabres have declined comment on Eichel over the last 2 days. Prusmack said the disc replacement surgery has been widely done on athletes such as MMA fighters and rugby players, as I mentioned earlier. He said it has also been done on hockey players, although not on NHL-level hockey players, and said that the Sabres' hesitancy flies in the face of medical improvements. I don't think that's an argument, or you would never make the medical advances in any rhyme or reason. So pretty much, if you aren't willing to take these steps and try these procedures, then you don't make the advancements in the medical field, and in particular, obviously, spine and cervical here. He said this is not an experimental procedure. This is established in the literature as being superior to the artificial disc fusion, the ACDF. It is exactly what I would give my kid, and it would be exactly what I would get if I was in Jack Eichel's shoes. This is one of those operations. They wake up from surgery and they want to hug you. It is extremely effective. It is extremely safe. As a doctor, I've got to look at the whole picture. I don't want to see Jack Eichel because we defaulted. To a surgery he did not want. That when he's 60, taking care of his grandchildren, he's had fusions up and down his spine. Maybe has difficulty swallowing, etc. It's my job to make sure that he not only performs in a safe way, but I have to advocate. I have to be his advocate for that. Pretty much his advocate for quality of life beyond hockey. If anyone says that a fusion is better in the long run, they are not telling the truth, or they do not know the literature. It's a good option, but it's inferior in this case. With that being said, I just feel that sorry guys, I feel that the disc replacement is the way to go. Again, there is definitely bias. This whole thing seems orchestrated, right? It seems very orchestrated. It seems we're going to drop this statement here, and then first thing tomorrow morning, we're going to drop an interview that was clearly already recorded, not even 12 hours after that statement drops, and lights hockey Twitter on fire, on absolute fire. So the way I look at this is clearly this was an orchestrated plan from Peter Fish and Donatelli in favor of trying to either A, get Jack Eichel out of Buffalo sooner rather than later, or B, get this surgery done and then circle back to A. It's just not a good look for the Buffalo Sabres. It's not a good look for Jack Eichel. And if you were to ask me right now to predict what's going to happen here, I think this is going to drag on for a lot longer. People seem to think that trade him now. Well, now his value is even lower from a hockey standpoint, and make it, if all of these facts that Dr. Prusmack has presented are true and factual, and he is being genuinely honest for Jack Eichel, the human being, and not Jack Eichel, the athlete who wants to leave Buffalo, then yes, get him into disc replacement surgery sooner rather than later. Give Jack Eichel what he wants here. It is his body. 6 weeks goes by. You start maybe some more low-impact training. 8 weeks, get him into practice, training. Let him play in the preseason. Again, I don't recall when the preseason games are scheduled, if that falls into the exact same timeline. And then let him show that he's healthy and his value goes from here up to here. That's the direction I think that the Sabres should take right now. There's also, obviously, you can file a grievance with the league. And again, I don't know all the verbiage of that. Some people have mentioned that there's a way his contract can be terminated, even though, according to the CBA, the league might take, or would likely, I could be wrong, likely take the Sabres side on this, because it is worded in the CBA that they do have final say in this procedure. And it is proven that the fusion surgery is, in fact, a very viable option. It does have an over 90% success rate, even though it might not be, according to the expert. Dr. Prusmack, the best direction, the fusion is an option. And I think that's where the Sabres stance is. It doesn't seem like they're budging. Maybe this changes things. I don't know. But with that being said, it's just very, very difficult to really go through those waters. I don't know. So with that being said, guys, I'm reading right here. September 28th is the first day of preseason for the Sabres. So September 28th, we are in August. That is 2 months away. Start of preseason. That gives you over the next 2 weeks to really come up with this decision to ensure that Jack Eichel can play in these preseason games and show that he's 100%. I agree. You don't trade him from the business standpoint. You don't trade him until you get the proper return. No way. He is your most powerful asset. You don't want to have a Ryan O'Reilly 2.0 and just, again, this has been a very, very unprecedented, and some may even say embarrassing 24 hours for the Buffalo Sabres. You always say, you never say with this team, well, it can't get any worse than this. It can, and it just did. So I think you need to do what's best for Jack Eichel, the human being here. Put his health first and his longevity and his quality of life first here. Allow him to get the surgery. If he's bluffing, he'll say, oh, okay, maybe I don't want to do that. Then you find out. I don't know. I get it, though. I just don't foresee a trade happening anytime soon now. That's just my opinion. You don't want to force a trade, and in terms of the business side of things and getting what's best for the Buffalo Sabres, getting a lower return on a player as great and as elite as Jack Eichel. So, what do we do about him being captain in this scenario, though? You take the C away, right? You can't have him coming to camp wearing the C. I don't know. Maybe you just keep the C on him, but it's kind of universally known he's going to be gone. I don't think these players are professionals. I don't think anybody would take that offensively, that he's in preseason. Everybody knows the situation. Nobody's stupid. We all know that, he's essentially here to prove to, 31 other teams that he's healthy. That's how I would handle it. allow him to get the surgery, let him rehab, let him show the league that he's healthy, and you maximize the return 2 months from now. In-season trades are a thing. Free agency's over. Players have spent the majority of the money that they're going to, even though there are still, some good free agents out there. And I circle back to the Thomas Vanek trade when we traded Thomas Vanek during the season. I had like 9 o'clock at night with the Islanders. You got Matt Molson. It was 2 firsts. And I can't remember if there was any other return. Maybe somebody in the comments could, let me know what the rest of I think it was 2 firsts and Matt Molson, which was a great return because Matt Molson, I think, was like a 25-30 goal scorer at the time. Great return for Buffalo. So an in-season trade isn't out of the question. If a team wants to acquire Jack Eichel, they are going to find a way to fit him into his $10 million underneath their cap. That's a player that if you have an opportunity to get him and you guys have a deal on the table that makes sense, obviously Buffalo is taking salary back. You make the moves to make that happen. You just do. So anyways, guys, I'll hang up and listen. Post in the comments. Let me know what you thought. And let's hopefully this gets better sooner rather than later and we get some more clarity on the situation, hopefully here sometime tonight or tomorrow from the Buffalo Sabres, because I don't think you can, leave that matzo ball out there like the way this is, the big elephant in the room after what's transpired since last night and just not address it from the Sabres side of things. Maybe Terry and Kim can get off the sidelines at Highmark Stadium and actually make a comment on the team they bought first and the one that they promised the Stanley Cup for. The sole reason of our existence is to win a Stanley Cup. Again, until Eichel proves his health and worth, they will keep getting bad offers from other teams. I agree, 150%. You need to prove that he's healthy. He needs to just get the surgery. That's what I think. At this point, that's the best option here. I think the trade offers, unless a team gets really desperate and feels comfortable letting him get that surgery, and again, is very desperate. I don't see the offers getting any better anytime soon, I guess. I'll hang up and listen. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a good Sunday, fun day tomorrow, guys. I will talk to you later.